The Hogs and Tigers set to do battle on Saturday at Jordan-Hare Stadium. This is a big one for Arkansas. Had a close call just a couple weeks ago in Stillwater, looking for that early season signature win. Nowhere better to get it than the Plains, and nobody better to help us break down this game from the Arkansas Razorback side than a good friend of mine. Tye Richardson of Hit That Line Arkansas does an incredible job of talking all things Razorbacks. Tye, appreciate you taking the time, man. It's a pleasure to have you on once again. And excited, by the way, to link up with you, my man, this weekend. Going to be a fun one, man. What's going on?
You know, you missed karaoke at SEC Media Days. We're going to throw it in at halftime in Auburn, Alabama on Friday night. Cannot wait. Excited to see you. I hadn't seen you since July, and we've had a lot of college football outcomes happen since then. So, Chris, we'll have some fun this weekend in Auburn, Alabama, the brunette capital of the world.
Yeah, I'll make up for my missed karaoke there in Dallas. We'll do it up even bigger and better in Auburn. But, Tye, let's talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks, zeroing on the Hawks specifically. It's been an interesting season to this point, right? You get the big 70-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff, but more importantly, you go 10 for 10 on touchdown drives, and right, the Bobby Petrino legend being back in Fayetteville already starts to kind of build itself up. That game in week 2, I know, was tough. The 2 overtime loss to Oklahoma State, one in which I feel this way. I'm sure you feel this way, and Hog fans feel this way. A game you probably should have won. I mean, there were self-inflicted wounds, there were turnovers, but it felt like Arkansas was the better team, and you dropped that game, a big opportunity missed. And then this past weekend against UAB, a 10-point win over the Blazers. Were the Hogs overlooking UAB, looking ahead of this game? Maybe, maybe not. How much stock do you put into that one? I guess we'll kind of see how that translates in this. But through 3 games, Arkansas is 2-1. I think this is a place we thought Arkansas could be. Just, Tye, your biggest takeaways and thoughts on this team through 3 weeks. Has it been drastically different than you expected? Has anything surprised you? Has it been right at what you expected? Just your overall thoughts on Sam Pittman's squad through 3 games.
I think offensively, Chris, they're better than I initially anticipated. And I would have told you Taylor Green's way better until he had this last outing where he went 11 for 26 and missed at least 2 wide open touchdowns. And there was probably another throw that could have led to another. They have some issues like every other team in college football outside of maybe Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. But the thing about the Razorbacks is your SEC schedule, it's kind of a slow build. Like Auburn's not unbeatable. Texas A&M isn't the cream of the crop in this league. I think we saw that first weekend against Notre Dame. So you're not getting smacked with Georgia, Texas, or Alabama. Maybe you can even throw Ole Miss or Missouri into that category, or Tennessee. You kind of build up for that first home game against the Volunteers coming up in the first weekend of October. I think for defensively, look on the other side, Travis Williams just had his baby this past week. Congrats to Coach Williams. I know that was probably a distraction. It's not it's just reality. Like, I'm not blaming him for having a kid during football season, but for those that have had children, like there's a focus that's taken up by I don't know if it was his firstborn, but your child. And I don't blame him for that. And so I think this football team will be much more focused heading into this game in Jordan-Hare Stadium this weekend.
Tye, when you look at this game specifically, I think what's so fascinating about it is both sides desperately need it, maybe for different reasons, if you will. But I just think the overall trajectory is right. Like we know what's on the line for Sam Pittman and company, and the win total that needs to be reached, probably bowl game or bust, if you will, to see him come back in 2025. And then, on the Auburn side, I mean, I look at them, Tye, as a program that year 2 of Hugh Freeze, I think there were a lot of high expectations this year. You've already benched your quarterback, right? You're going to see Hank Brown in this football game after his performance against New Mexico. But they were looking at winning 8 or 9 games this year, and you inexplicably lost the game to Cal. So you want to expand on that. I just think it's an interesting matchup of 2 sides that, I think both fan bases coming to this one, Tye, feeling like this is one that we can win. Maybe they even feel like they should win, but I think both fan bases feel like this is one we need to win.
I think it's more pressure on Auburn than is Arkansas, not just as the home team, but for the reasons you just laid out. I don't know how they lost to Cal. I know Arkansas, how they lost to Oklahoma State. I guess the 4 interceptions from Peyton Thorne, that's why. And that's why he's not starting this weekend or last weekend. I think it's Auburn's fans have higher expectations on their season than Arkansas fans do. And that doesn't make it right or wrong for either team to lose this game. But I think there's more emphasis from the Auburn side. I do think that the Razorbacks feel like they can win this game. They got tattooed last season, like 48-10. Hugh Freeze had some colorful post-game comments talking about they could have scored more. So I think there's going to be a little revenge on the minds of not just Razorback players, but coaches heading into this Saturday.
One time you talked about him, Travis Williams, the defensive coordinator for Arkansas, played his football at Auburn. So sort of a homecoming for him. What do you expect from that Razorbacks defense, especially facing, a guy in Hank Brown that I'm not sure anybody really knows what to expect, right? There's weapons on the outside. About Fairweather at tight end. Jarquez Hunter. Again, there's some guys back from last year, like you mentioned, had their way with Arkansas. But I'm personally, Tye, fascinated by the matchup of Travis Williams kind of going back home, if you will. You got to think there's going to be a massive chip on the shoulder for him in that Arkansas defense.
Yeah, especially how it went last season in Fayetteville. I know for Coach Williams, anytime you get a chance to go up against your alma mater in any situation, there's a lot of emotions. And I know he coached there, played there, of course. I would think that he's going to have his guys fired up, especially as low as the defense. It's not like the offense was impressive, but the defense just looked awful in that first half and at other points during that football game against UAB. So I'm expecting a much better unit this Saturday, and I just hope that that's maybe the starting point for this Arkansas team to possibly get to a bowl game this season, Chris.
Tye, switching sides of the football, you mentioned Taylen Green last week was not great. I mean, you look at the numbers, they'll tell you that. Against Oklahoma State, the offense was clicking. I love, by the way, Tye, what I've seen from Jaquindon Jackson. I was not nearly as familiar with his game as maybe some others were, but I mean, from the jump, he is just.
I was not really.
I'm sorry, I was not familiar with your game. Yeah, I feel like the meme for sure. He's been bulldozing dudes, man. Runs pissed off, and I mean that obviously as a compliment. And then I look at this Arkansas receiver room. Tye, feels very underrated. Like with some of the guys, they got a lot of guys in there that can win some matchups and make some big plays. So I think the Vegas over under right now is like 57.5 or 58. Definitely feels like a spot where Arkansas, I feel confident saying, can put up some big-time points in this game.
Yeah, Andrew Armstrong is going to wind up on an all-SEC team. I don't know if he can get to first, but definitely second or third. He was a guy in the offseason. My hot take was he's going to surpass 1,000 yards. And if not for that injury leading him not to play game one, I would be very confident in that prediction. He's been great through 2 games. I'm curious when he goes up against SEC corners and safeties, what that looks like for him from a dominant standpoint. He's going to take a step back like everyone else does. But are there other guys that can step up? You mentioned Jaquindon Jackson, Chris. He is a dog, man. And he was a good running back at Utah, but he has taken himself to another level where he leads the SEC in touchdowns and I believe in yards as well, and breaking tackles left and right. Really the only thing stopping him is himself, because his offensive line's doing a really good job. He's been nicked up in every game this season. Cramps, going over the sideline for I don't know if it's a stinger is the right term, but something seems to bring him over to the medical, not necessarily the medical tip, but the trainers at least once a game. I hope for his sake he stays healthy, because we've seen when he's toting the rock, good things are happening for that Arkansas offense.
Tye, after missing an opportunity in Stillwater just a couple weeks ago, what do you think Arkansas potentially learned from that game? And maybe what's the focus for the Hawgs to make sure they finish the job this go around, another big opportunity on the road? Is it limiting the self-inflicted mistakes, the turnovers? Is it simply just finishing the task at hand to the end of the ball game? Like, what's the thing you look at and you think Arkansas is looking at as like, hey, we got to make sure we take care of this, and maybe it's a lesson learned from that dropped opportunity there against Oklahoma State?
I think it's special teams and turnovers, and that sounds so simple, but 4 turnovers, I believe, in that game. Special teams, you missed 2 field goals. You also had a muff punt. Arkansas dominated offensively, as you alluded to earlier. Defensively, they didn't allow an offensive touchdown for 50 minutes against one of the best offensive minds in football at home with a 7-year quarterback. So I think both those units showed up. It was just the other miscues within special teams and, again, turnovers from the offense. While they had good outings, they stopped themselves. So I think if Arkansas special teams are just solid, they don't have to be great, just solid, and they limit the turnovers, they'll probably win this football game, because I think Taylen Green's a more talented quarterback than Hank Brown. And I think Arkansas has a stronger running game, and the passing game might be a wash. Defensively, I can't mean, Auburn-wise, Arkansas-wise, maybe you could say it's even, maybe even give the edge to Auburn. But the at-home, it's one of the craziest, if not the craziest venues in terms of outcomes in college football. And Arkansas never seems to be on the right side of games in this stadium. Let's hope that changes this Saturday starting at 2:30.
Tye, I know we're talking early in the week, so I'm not sure if you've done like any deep dive or anything, but just what you've seen from Auburn to this point. What concerns you about the Tigers? Where do you feel like Arkansas can take advantage? What are the matchups you're most looking forward to in this one?
I think it's the unknown. You brought up Hank Brown. This kid's going in his first SEC start. He's a redshirt freshman. We got no idea what his ceiling is. We haven't seen his low point because we haven't seen him outside of one real game against New Mexico. And I hesitate to call that a huge sample size because it's a non-conference opponent. It's at home, and you're not going up against SEC defenders. This kid is who Auburn fans were clamoring for. Peyton Thorne was Hugh Freeze's guy heading into the season, named captain, brings him to SEC media days, really staked his reputation on him because they didn't bring a transfer quarterback in the offseason. And yet Hank Brown's now starter by week 3 and heading into game number 4. So I think it's that aspect and how much Arkansas is willing to leave cornerbacks and safeties on islands and come after this kid, how he reacts to that, Chris.
Tye, switching gears a little bit, I don't want to certainly fluster the fine folks of halftimes or anywhere else in the great city of Auburn, Alabama, but I know how you feel about A&M fans and maybe some other fan bases in the SEC. What's the feeling around Auburn fans, or maybe the relationship between Arkansas and Auburn? Is it heated? You mentioned this is obviously a yearly game for quite some time. So is there mutual level of respect? Is there a low-key rivalry? Like what's the feeling amongst Hawgs and Tigers?
So they played every year since 1992, and that trend obviously continues this year. Next year, don't expect them to play one another based on how the SEC schedule will play out and how things are set together. Auburn leads this series, as well as in Auburn too, not just head-to-head, both places. But, I mean, I'm going to be honest, Chris, of any SEC school, if I didn't go to Arkansas as an Arkansan, I would go to Auburn. I really like that campus. I like the school. I don't know a ton of alums from there, but the ones I do know, I really like. And I just haven't – when we went back there in 2021 when KJ Jefferson and company ran Roughshot, or excuse me, 2022, I enjoyed it. It's always fun to go to an SEC venue and walk around and bar hop after a win because everyone either is looking at you with like disgust or it's kind of like, hey, man, good game. You guys played your tails off today, blah, blah, blah. So I actually like Auburn. Now, there's other schools in this league I hate, like A&M, but Auburn does not find itself at the top of that list. In fact, they're very low on the hate meter. Like I said, I probably would have gone to Auburn if I had a choice of another SEC institution that wasn't Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I just imagine you, Tye, I forget the movie, maybe you can refresh my memory, where he's got the list and he's like crossing the names off and the one guy is like nice to him and he's like goes to his room and he crosses. That's like the Tye Richardson hate list. It's like Tye's got the power rankings. He's slowly moving them down, right?
I know what you're talking about.
I forget the movie too. I can see it so vividly in my head, and I for some reason just can't recall it. Somebody in the comments is going to say, "Yep, it's that movie." How could you forget, you idiot? Tye, this has been great, man. It's always a pleasure. Y'all make sure you go check out Tye Richardson over at Hit That Line Arkansas. Last thing before I get you out of here, just for you, a key to victory for the Hawgs. I know we mentioned special teams and mentioned turnovers. You know, Auburn has had some issues turning the football over. Fumbles specifically. They fumbled the football 9 times. They've only lost 5 of those, but still they've put the ball on the ground a ton through 3 weeks. So in your mind, what's the key in this football game and what's Arkansas got to do to secure the win?
I would say Taylor Green has to just be confident. He was timid, nervous, pick an adjective or adverb. He felt that way last week in Fayetteville. It was his first game inside of that stadium, so there's some nerves that accompany that. But if that kid played like he did at Oklahoma State, then they're probably going to win this football game. I think it's like quarterbacks that are transfers and they're coming from another conference that's much lesser in competition. There's an acclimation period. And this is his first SEC game, so you never know what's going to happen. But if he plays competent, then I think Arkansas's got a great shot to win this game. So that's what I'm keeping an eye out for, is just where he is nerves-wise throughout the 60 minutes of football we have ahead on Saturday. And heck, We're going to be in person, baby. Can't wait.
Tye Richardson hit that line, Arkansas. Y'all be sure to check out his work. And again, Tye, send me that seat at halftime. You know that I will see you there on Friday night on the most beautiful village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. Tye, you're the man. I appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend, and we'll definitely do this again soon.
Chris, appreciate it, buddy. Can't wait for this weekend.